The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's hump day, but it's a big hump today after that circus at the city council.
The Circus Maximus.
Circus Maximus to the 100th power. That's it. Well, that was a travesty last night.
You know, it was. And, you know, the thing is, if you watch the entire thing, which, you know, my ears are still bleeding.
I'm surprised you have eyeballs left from sticking pins in them. So.
And my ears are still bleeding. Mary Sahadi and Kathy Ann Vivera said very clearly that we can fund this within the tax levy, which is what Sean Kadim has been saying the whole time, except for the first 8 years. Except for the first 8 years. So in the first 8 years, maybe the city council, because they can do this, would raise the debt service for those 8 years, because after that, we can fund it.
Yeah.
So this override isn't necessary.
Right.
It's not necessary.
Oh, but in a way, CJ, let's be perfectly. Let's look at the history. You know, like I say, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. You're right. If we do things correctly for the next 8 years, we'll be able to fund it. But the way they spend money here, we'll need to take 6 more bonds after 8 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is the way they do things, and that's the thing. And also, I have to say this: officials dish out thoughts in the final presentation. Well, it shouldn't be the final presentation because they didn't have figures. The architect didn't have figures. The figures they did have weren't accurate. And we heard the famous line that we used to get from our former treasurer, "I'll have to get back to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to check the figures." Really? You want people to vote to give you money, and you don't even have it, you know, you've admitted you don't have the full figures. That's not a presentation. As a matter of fact, I actually put in a complaint to the president of the city council. I said, look, as a taxpayer, I'm tired of having this financial team come in here and never have all the answers. That's what they're supposed to have. If you got a project, you should have all the numbers. When you go to the bank to get a loan, if you're opening up a business or getting a mortgage, they don't give it to you without all your numbers. You have to bring pay slips, and if it's a business, you have to bring your business plan. You need all this stuff to get a dime from a bank. But when you're raping the taxpayers, you can just go up and have City Council Leo Pelletier lean back in his seat and go, "Oh, what's the big deal? They need the money. Just give them the money." Taxpayers. Yeah, well, guess what? You can just go. That's just the attitude that they have, and that's why I said yesterday, they're living in a different Fall River than we are. We're living in a Fall River that people are looking at losing their houses or not being able to afford their medications, and a Fall River that hides the fact. Everybody's forgetting already. They shifted the tax factor. They already taxed up to the max. We got a $123 million bond. You got another $3.2 million bond for one house. And they raised all the fees. So guess what? Where are we going to get the money in a city with, the last figure was 22% living below the poverty level, with one of the lowest, if not the lowest, household incomes? They don't care. They don't like poor people. They don't want poor people. But they haven't realized that the 35% of the people who own their houses, half of those people are living on fixed incomes. They just can't afford it. But they don't care. They don't want to hear it. Remember, we are liabilities. Those people made the terrible mistake of living. How dare they stay alive? into their 80s and 90s. How dare they? You know how much they're screwing this city up? They're still getting a retirement check. The hell with the 40 years they spent working for a living. They didn't all grab jobs with the city their last 4 or 5 years to fatten up a check and get a full pension. No, they worked 40 years of their lives, 30 and 40 years of their lives, going to work every day, having to fight for pay raises. They don't just get them bestowed on them like they do in City Hall. And like I said last night's meeting, let's put this in perspective. The U.S. Census Bureau gave the average per capita income in Fall River was $22,500, whatever. But I did the math. She's making $2,600 a week versus $400 and something a week. So just do the math on that. So that's almost about, takes you 5.5 weeks. But it will take a person who is making the average income in Fall River, the average per capita income, slightly over 6 years to make what Kathy Ann makes in a year. Mary Sahadi, on the other hand, it'll only take you 5 years to get to her salary. So this to me is just, you know, and you know, of course they're going to, you know, then we get the proponents, and it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. Well, no, it isn't. It's about money. It's about buying a building, and it's about, are we wasting our money? Are we giving them again too much money? Because Sean Kadim did bring up at that meeting how they could move money from the money that they want you to vote for to fix a school. I don't care if it's a school, a police station, or a fire station. Our buildings should be well maintained and be adequate for who's ever in there. The children, yeah, oh, you don't like children. Of course I like children. However, how about the people who protect those children? Our police and fire. They're not entitled to have a good building too? So that means when we have a bond, we're going to do this dog and pony show again, because instead of marching the kids in front of the city council, they're going to march the police. Police officers will be there, firefighters will be there. You can't blame them. They're looking for something that they need. But it's not about that. It's about money. As we said on the first show, what did we tell you? Follow the money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, their figures are still off. Then Mary Sahadi made that ridiculous thing about when they used the $81,000. You're mixing up principal and interest and blah, blah, blah. You can't do that. Yes, you can. When you get your mortgage, doesn't it have the principal and the interest there?
Of course it does.
Wow, I don't know. You can't do that. I got to call my bank. You can't do that to my mortgage. Well, how dare you mix the principal and the interest into that payment? Because that's the way it's done.
But the thing is, it's 180, it's not 98.5 million people. Understand this, it's not 98.5 million. It is $181 million. Yeah,
we need a big card with that number on it. You know.
$181 million, that's our cost. That's more than the state gives us. The state's only giving us 165. That means we're paying 52% of this building cost. And they keep saying it was, first, if you remember, it was 80%. Then it's 62. Now we're down to 48%.
Yeah.
How much lower are we going to go?
Yeah. Well.
And then they tried to use the state. Well, the state's bonding for that money too, so you got to put the state's interest in there. No, I don't, because all I'm getting from the state is $165 million. That's it. I'm getting that as a flat grant. They don't have to put that interest that the state pays. That's on the state side. That's not the city side. On the city side, we're paying $181 million. $181 million. I'm going to say it again, $181 million.
Well, you stop that. You know you can't mix principal, because what last night's presentation was, look, if you buy a car and you finance it, you're paying interest and principal. That's the way it is. You have to pay the entire bill. And if you finance it for 5 years, you're paying interest for 5 years. If you pay it out early, you save a little interest. Your principal still remains. But we're going to pay both. And she doesn't want, she wants to separate it because it looks lower. That's what they always do. They break it down. 31 cents a day, that's like, you know, 1/100 of a cent an hour or something like that. It's absurd that, because that's, you immediately know when they begin to do stuff like that, they're conning you. They're conning you. It's like, oh, let's give them, look, it doesn't seem like much. What did they say about the sewer bond? Oh, it's only going to be $9. Oh, this is only going to be 31 cents. Well, you add them all up and you put in the additional tax factor that we have now, that they shifted to us, the taxpayer, the max 2.5 increase, the sewer and water fees, all that stuff. And you know, it's like when millionaires talk. You know, they say, you know, $1 million here, $1 million there, and before you know it, you're talking about real money. When in Fall River, it's $9 here, 31 cents there, and the bottom line is there are people in this community that they don't even, I don't even know if they know about them or they just don't want to know about them. There are people in this community with houses that have been paid for decades, and they're now having a difficult time keeping their houses because this relentless attack. And what really disturbs me is a former city administrator, a guy who knows numbers pretty well, obviously, is saying we can do this within our means, without doing this stuff. And they don't want to talk about it. They want all their little amenities, and they want to have a pool of money that they can frankly dip into.
But it's not only that. If they do this appropriately, if they do this within the tax levy, it's only the first 8 years that they may have difficulty meeting the debt service. So raise the debt service for those 8 years. Okay? So we got to tighten our belt a little bit, and Mary Sahadi doesn't get another raise. Okay? Kathy Viveris doesn't get another raise. Okay? A few department heads don't get another raise. Okay? And, you know, your friends on Purchase Street don't get free bond money to improve their buildings. Okay? That's what happens, because that's what debt service is. Now, Pamela Laliberte-LeBeau asked a question very clearly yesterday. Okay? Can the city council reduce what the taxpayer has to pay? And they beat around the bush, and, you know, they were beating it up, and, well, you know, you have a line item veto, and you can reduce, but you can't increase. You can reduce, but you can't increase. That means they can reduce the debt service, meaning the city side of what they got to pay, but that somebody's got to pay that, so that's going to raise your fee. But they can't increase the amount the city pays, which would lower what you have to pay. So the city council has no control, nothing, zero, zilch control over this override if you pass it. If you pass this override, you're going to get screwed. Because that means, very clearly it was made by Mary Sahadi, the city can at any time increase what the taxpayer must pay under the override. Under this debt exclusion, they can increase it at any time. Understand that. You vote yes on this, you're saying, here's my blank check, knock it out of the park.
There you go. Blank check and more money for them to siphon off for the stuff that, you know, they keep saying we got plenty of money, but we don't, because they keep robbing Peter to pay Paul. And what gets
no postage stamps.
What gets me is the Herald News article, and it talked about it, and it said most of the city council seemed supportive, and it said, a new councilor who seems to be virtually mute most of the time, said he sees a lot of good coming from this building and stuff. Well, number one, buildings don't create good, and the superintendent of schools must be delusionary. Where is he originally from? Do you know, CJ?
The North Shore.
The North Shore. Well, that explains it. Probably Marblehead or you know, one of those towns.
I think it's from the North Shore.
Marblehead or Swampscott or something like that, where the average income's like 100 and.
Well, his average income is $200 and some odd thousand.
Well,
so.
You know what I like? I like it when he says if you build them a nice building and stuff, you know, it will make them behave better. What? I mean, what are you on, buddy? I want some of that. I want some of that. Do you realize, we have gang issues in the high school?
Wait a minute. Eddie Lambert said we didn't have gangs.
Yeah, we know that now. We have gang issues in the schools. We have all kinds of problems in the school, and we have a problematic issue. Look at our graduation rate is only 70. The U.S. Census Bureau again, but what the hell do they know? Our graduation rate is like in the low 70%. You take communities where maybe if they would respect the building, the graduation rate in Newton is, I think, 97.1%. And but that is the most ludicrous statement in the world.
Well, I'm going to quote him.
If you put a suit on a serial killer, he's a well-dressed serial killer. You're going to tell me that teenage kids aren't going to they're going to respect everything. There's going to be there'll be no vandalism.
Well, he said, let's be real, he said, if you show them the respect they deserve, they will respect the building.
They know, you know what they deserve? A quality education.
That's it.
That's the whole problem with the entire society now. They treat children like they're adults. They're there to learn. You gotta sit down with your child and have a discussion with them. No. What index of experience do they have to make decisions? That's one of them. I don't even know if he's got kids. Did you let your kids run amok and do anything they wanted when they were 14 and 15 years old? They all got grandiose ideas and things, and they all get themselves in trouble at some point in time unless you be a parent. You have to sit them down and tell them you have absolutely no life experience, and your decisions are predicated on a Rolodex of information that is blank. You give them an education. Isn't it ironic that this country has, one of the worst educational systems in the world, and you look at all the countries that have tremendous educational systems, and what do they have in school? Let's have respect. Let's not bother the babies and stress them out because 60% are stressed and 80% are anxious. We don't want to make them anxious. Well, guess what? China, Japan, Germany, all those countries. You go to their schools, you behave, or there are consequences. You're telling me that now a building will make them behave better. That is the most ludicrous, that is convoluted logic at its best. And then actually somebody at one point in time in a conversation I had said that the school would foster economic development. Really? Why? What are they going to do? Build a Burger King inside the school?
No, a Pizza Hut.
Or a Pizza Hut. I mean, look, so many arguments for this are they're just out of control. And when you listen to some of these people talk that are in power, it makes me realize why we're having the problems we have with our education in this city. Because we have people that are I can guarantee you that our superintendent grew up in an academic bubble. And he had, and that's the thing. I don't think he's ever worked in any place but inside a school. He's never been out in the streets of Fall River. I invite him to come out with me. We'll roam the streets of Fall River for a couple of days, and maybe you'll wake up.
Well, the problem that I have is, and it was brought up by City Councilor Steve Camara, and everyone was all upset. They don't he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But he's right. The school is built with an open floor plan. Okay, there are balconies. And he said,
with railings.
Yeah, with railings.
That you can be pushed over.
Exactly. And it said, somebody's going to take somebody's cell phone and throw it over the balcony, over the railing. Oh, no, if you show them respect, they will respect. No, they won't. Bullies exist. Do they say that bullies don't exist in Durfee right now? Yes, they do.
And
yes, they do.
But when they give them a nice building, they will stop.
They'll stop, yeah.
You build it, and they shall come.
Just like when they built this Durfee, right? The first thing that happened was everyone was smoking in the bathrooms, and they were burning the doors. okay? Because I remember when I went into that building, the doors were burnt. Oh, but this one here is going to have cameras on we'll be able to see every square foot of the building.
Well, why would we need that if they're going to respect
Yeah, if they're going to behave, what do you need the cameras for?
I mean, what do we need the cameras for? Then, you know, look, and when something does happen up there, they'll try to bury it.
Right.
They'll try to cover it up. That's the whole thing. I mean, you know, open floor plans, you know, and the architect didn't even have the numbers, by the way. For
exactly. He said he's going to go back.
So here's the guy that's building the building. He has no idea. Oh, I have to get back to you. Really? This is the final presentation, and you can't give me a definitive figure. Simple matter, bottom line, vote no on this. Make them find the money and make them account.
They already said they can. They already said they can. This is the problem.
Yeah,
so if they can't, what do you need this for?
They say they can, but they don't.
Right. They don't want to. They don't want to. That's why.
Yeah.
They want to have that slush fund.
Oh, exactly. Yep.
They want to have that ability to say, hey, you know what? We're going to spend a little extra money here, a little extra money there. Hey, my friend needs a payoff. My friend needs this. My friend needs that. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, let's be realistic. They're going to separate the current auditorium, which I'm not saying we destroy this new auditorium. This auditorium we currently have. It's a beautiful auditorium. It's big. It's large. Whatever. But what did they say they're going to use it for? They're going to use it for a community theater, but they're going to put the special ed offices in there, the parent center in there. So they're not going to just do away with it. But they need a second theater in the new Durfee, because sending the students out to the community theater will be a security risk, because if they walk out of the building, remember respect now, if they walk out of the building, they won't come back. But they respect it, right?
That's right. Of course. They respect it so much that, like I said, in the old days, when we went to school, if you bailed out, you were a truant.
That's right.
Now they let them just wander around. They wander off the campus. And
they go across the street for Dunkin' Donuts.
Go across there. They go to Newport Creamery and have an ice cream. You know, that happens all the time. But, you know, the problem is that, as I said, we're being realistic. When you see exchange students come over from Germany, Japan, you look at their discipline. You look at they are actually appalled at the chaos that we have in our school systems. As a matter of fact, there were some Japanese exchange students that came here supposedly to study for a semester, and they went back after like 2 weeks because, number one, you know, everything was, the classes are out of control. Plus, they were saying, the stuff you're covering, we had 3 grades ago, and we're not going to learn anything here. And they went back to Japan so they could learn, because they only send their best and brightest when they send them over. They want to represent their country. And they were horrified by our school system and the kind of lack of respect that students had and have for teachers.
Because it's dishonorable to have disrespect for the teachers.
Because the old days, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child, you know.
Yeah.
I still remember the butt whipping I got in the 3rd grade by my teacher when she caught me fooling around on my desk instead of doing what I was supposed to do, and she took me into the broom closet and broke a couple of pointers over me. You know, started beating me severely about the head and shoulders with the pointers. So, yeah, but
head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
But then again, I survived, and guess what? I didn't do that anymore in class.
That's right. But you know,
but you can't do that now. You'd be in jail if you did that now, because heaven forbid, you know, because the children show you the utmost respect. Really, the utmost respect is not seen. I've seen a lot of these kids, and they, you know, there's going to be no sugar coating. There will be no sugar. A lot of these kids are punks. They're punks, and they're worse now because they know nothing can be done to them. Absolutely nothing. You can't give them a chapada, and you know, you can't do anything. And teachers are going to stay there and get abused verbally and sometimes physically. And if they attempt to defend themselves, you know, they're in trouble.
That's right.
They're in trouble. And that's not right. That is supposed to be an environment of learning. And discipline and order is how you learn. When you don't depend on a teenager to respect you, because they don't even respect their parents most of the time. How many teenagers Yeah, we both brought up teenagers.
Yep.
And you know that they tell you one thing, and I'm going over to Johnny's to study, and they're out partying with their friends or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then you catch them, and then you have to discipline them. But, I mean, this entire concept, and especially in this community, where you have people with, extremely low income levels and stuff like that, and they grow up in areas where there's a lot of violence in this city, and they're going to come to school, and all of a sudden they're going to become choir boys and girls because you built a nice new building for them. I guess you never saw the documentary about the high-rise they built in New York City. It was a beautiful, state-of-the-art high-rise, and then they moved all the miscreants that had previously lived back in there. Within 5 years, that high-rise was a total disaster. They went back with a news crew, and they filmed it, and it looked like the high-rise they had demolished and rebuilt with a new one. So they didn't show respect to the property, and the problem is, hey, it's part of the society.
But, the bigger problem is this. We have brand new schools in the city, new middle schools, new elementary schools. They're not brand new anymore, but we have new schools. And they are doing what Carlos Caesar calls the bucket dance. Those schools are doing the bucket dance already, where you got to walk around buckets catching water. And I said this last night also at the city council meeting. These buildings aren't being maintained. What guarantee do we have that the new Durfee that they want to build is going to be maintained? Okay? Well, and then Kenny Pacheco comes out and says, oh, well, we spent $297,000 on maintaining this building. I call bull on that. Because if I spent $300,000 on maintaining that building, I think it would look a lot better than it does now.
Yeah, well, we all know that that's a con job, and I know Michelle Diane went up there. She had some questions. She wants to see a plan, a maintenance plan. Well, we already got a maintenance. It's in the ordinance. By our ordinance, all buildings in the city of Fall River come under the purview of the, well, it's no longer DPW, but the euphemism, but that was there. And also the schools has a building and grounds department. So you know what they'll say? They'll make another plan. Okay, we're gonna maintain it. They're already obligated to maintain it, and they don't. And it's not only the schools. We've seen it happen in fire stations and buildings all over the city. Anything the city owns is normally in a state of disrepair. And you're right, they probably did spend $297,000. Mostly on salaries, and somebody was doing something, and it wasn't enough. And that's the problem. And when, in the history of Fall River, has any contractor been brought back to fix all the issues at no cost to the city?
Never.
Never. And it'll never happen in this instance, too. I don't care what they say. You know what they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you to go, you know what?
Yep. Well, here's the thing. Steve Long said this yesterday, and, we already had a pipe burst. What's going to happen when another pipe? No pipe burst. There was no pipe that burst. The report doesn't show that a pipe burst. A cap on a standpipe was loosened. Whether it was loosened because of age, which I seriously doubt, because I've never known a threaded pipe to loosen unless somebody took a pipe wrench to it and opened it up, or somebody opened it. But a cap on a standpipe was loosened, and that should have been a dry standpipe. So where was the water coming from?
Well, the thing is,
and how come nothing serious was damaged?
And it's, like I said, maybe it's conspiracy theory, but some people believe that cap was loosened intentionally. Steve Long doesn't, Steve Long's a shill for the administration. We know that. And now he's going to say that, like, oh, the building, look, the pipes are gone. That pipe wasn't gone. We can go look at that pipe today. And why don't you get off your butt and go to Durfee and look at it? Look at where the leak, the so-called leak that wasn't really a leak. It was a compromised cap. That's it. It was gone. So, hey, I won't be here Friday. I will be in Boston investigating. And I will see you guys on Monday. So, stay angry.
Stay angry, everybody. We'll see you. I'll see you on Friday. Have a good day.